Alright everyone, what's up? Tachi here. So we are going to talk about reading skills. Now, even though that does sound like a joke, I would like to point out that there are a lot of interactions between characters that people ask me about and that I see being asked both on Reddit and in the Discord. So that leads me to believe that a lot of people don't know how exactly to read the skills. So we're going to look at a few examples of some characters and read you their skills and tell you exactly how they work. So let's look at Levia. So first things first, these 4 things here, as well as the exceptions tab, you actually do need to read them quite a bit. So this right here, after normal attack, tells you when exactly in the chain. I'm not exactly sure what the technical term is, but you can imagine it similar to if you've ever played Yu-Gi-Oh, like a trap chain or a spell chain. So it tells you in what order it happens. So first, your normal attack hits anything that is considered before normal attack, like for example this defense increase before normal attack. This means before your normal attack hits, you get the defense buff. That is to say, for example, if you were to hit something, for example, something like Hell's Counter is after normal attack. So that defense increase means that after you kill Hell, your defense is already buffed. So the reflective counter deals less damage. So that is something to keep in mind, as well as there are also just straight up exceptions to some of these rules. So ignore silence skill types and applies anyways. So even if she's silenced, it'll still go through anyways. It's fixed damage, so it ignores anything that's listed there. And obviously fixed damage does not crit, so that's just pretty basic. Most people know that. Now on the topic of curses, now the thing about curses, right, is that while you do see here that it says before battle reflective counter, so that is to say that when you are getting attacked, you would think that the curse, which reduces enemy stats, that it says here before getting attacked, would mean that you would take less damage. However, if you were to go into the exceptions, you see that the application time of attack, crit rate, and crit damage weakening is after being attacked. So that means that curses do not actually lower the amount of damage you take from the normal attack. It only really applies to additional damage. So if you're getting one shot, like straight up just from their normal attack, curse is not going to help you at all. But it is fairly useful against characters with a significant amount of their damage in additional attack, like for example Valze. Valze has a lot of damage coming in from her additional attack, and that's why she can't really one-shot units that curse her that well. Or at least that's been my experience. Maybe later on in the game that won't be too much the case. Now, healing before getting attacked, instant heal. This is to say that if you are slightly below max HP and someone hits you, they have to deal, well, assuming that you get healed to max HP with this 24% healing, they would have to deal your effectively like your total HP to kill you. And since the heal happens before, there's not really anything you can do. I don't think heal block applies, generally speaking. I'm pretty sure heal blocks don't apply before. So this will go through and then you would get heal blocked. But granted, obviously, if you get attacked multiple times, you know, after you get heal blocked, then those additional hits will go through and you will not heal from them because you are now heal blocked. Now let's move on to another character. Now on the topic of additional damage. So additional damage happens after normal attack, correct? So after normal attack, your additional damage portion will actually inflict. So that is to say, for example, if you have a character that self buffs, so if you see, for example, a character like Yunrong, she has an advanced critical damage booster after normal attack, she gets an increase in crit damage and attack, and she also has this additional damage. That is to say that after she attacks, she gains this, and then her additional stuff is procced with that buff. So the buff applies before the additional damage proc, which is very, very helpful, and it's the reason why Yunrong does so much damage, and obviously other characters that get buffed as well. Now let's go on to some defenders. So this boost to agility after normal attack, that means, for example, if you were if you were to hit someone with a burn counter where you would get burned after an attack, and then you would get this buff, you would have, I think she has 15% or so. So you would have 85% agility, or whatever it happens to be, 85, 90, whatever it happens to be. Your high agility will now mean that you have a significantly higher chance of being grazed by the burn. So the burn will deal less damage. And then as well, you have this permanent combat counter. Counter attacks with additional damage to the enemy who attacks. Enemy max HP times 30%. Counter attacks with fixed additional damage to the enemy who attacks based on the skills applied to them. So obviously this means that if they have multiple combat stigmas on them, so let's say they survive like 2 turns, this would one-shot them. Actually, you already kind of one-shot them with crit damage, but that's a different topic. And then obviously taunts after normal attack. This is normal. Concentrated fire skills have a higher application priority. That's a very important exception to keep in mind, although we don't really see too much of them, but I have seen a handful of Mayas in Arena, and surprisingly they're not that bad. They're honestly kind of useful sometimes, but it's very niche. So let's see any other characters that are interesting. I think this one maybe. Check out Gunther. So Gunther, unlike some people, has a self buff that happens before battle, as well as he increases damage that he receives. That means his normal attack and his additional damage portion of his skill get an increase from that 50% attack buff that he receives, thanks to his permanent bloody anchor. So very good. Most people will let you know if you guys are unaware. The reason why we normally run 2-line comps is specifically because Gunther is just that good. He was just so good. Like, we have to do 2-line comps to not get fucked up by him. That's the funny thing, and this is kind of a tangent. Because everyone is using 2-line comps, fewer people are using Gunther, which means that it's actually not that bad to not use a 2-line comp, which is why you're starting to see people use, I'm not exactly sure what the actual formation is called, but I call it like a tank shape. 2 units in the corners in the front, and then 2 units in the corners in the back, and then just 5 units in the middle line. And then you have like 4 DPS with like 1 tank in the middle, usually in the skip position or in the last position, just so that you don't die. It's just such a really good comp. Now the thing about that comp is that, typically speaking, because you have the units in the middle displaced once to the left, that is to say, you don't have, in the front line, you don't have 3 units attached. You have basically like a V shape with your mid lane being 1 space out to the left. If Gunther's in the middle, he'll actually hit 2 to 3 units depending on the positioning of your team. So you see in this composition that if a Gunther skips in the middle and hits my Valfern, he will hit not only my Valfern, but he will also hit my Arenes, which will likely kill at least one of them. It might not necessarily kill my Valfern, but you basically get the gist of it depending on what you have there. It will probably die. Now, as for whether or not that will continue being a thing, I honestly kind of doubt it. There's starting to be more and more AoE warriors that just do too much damage in a 2 or 3 space line. Like, for example, Eden. Eden is very strong and he hits 2 squares if I'm not mistaken. It's not worth it in my opinion if he just one-shots like your entire front line. So this is something that I left out on my other video, but if you see here, initial blast status enhancement before battle. Now the important thing to keep in mind is this is before battle. So some people might not be aware, but when it says before battle, that means the entire actual battle. So you literally have 5 turns with this buff. So you need him to go like first or second, or like within the first chain if you're attacking. He's a very good attack character, not so much on defense. Although I suppose if you put him on first, maybe he's not that bad on defense, but he's just significantly better on attack because you can do like a 3 or 4 chain with mages and whatnot, and then get that first hit off where he does a bunch of damage. And then obviously attack boost in proportion to number of enemies graves before battle as well, but it's permanent, so makes sense. Now this is his additional damage after normal attack. Immediate additional damage makes sense. I don't really see how that's possible, but I suppose towards the end of the match, if your Hanya is somehow still alive, it'll become more possible because it'll just keep passing back and forth between him and the last character or whatever, and then he can have like 3 bleeds on the enemy, which is interesting. So other than that, let's see if there's anything else that I want to look at skill wise. So this is basically just a run through on how some skills work in the game. So it's important to keep that kind of stuff in mind. Like another example here really quick is something like Death Guard. You see when Valze hits something before the normal attack does not receive any damage. This is to stop things like reflective counters from killing her. And then obviously there are exceptions. Ignores prohibition and silent types. Can't be removed. Can't reset duration with the reset type skills. Not affected by pillage and copying. That is to say something like Walia wouldn't work on her. Or wouldn't work on copying it, to be exact. So that's very important. Death Guard disappears after receiving enemy normal attacks for a certain number of times, 1 time. So that basically just blocks her instantly dying to, like, let's say a bomber like Zakan, for example. That's something like that. It's really just there to block like one thing and then that's it. So if you guys have any other skills that you are not sure exactly how they work, first, obviously, due to the fact that the video is clearly saying that we should read skills more, especially the exceptions tab, which I'm sure a lot of people don't do, even I don't do. And then once you actually read it, then it becomes more obvious. But if even after reading the skills and the exceptions and everything, you still don't quite understand how a skill might interact with another skill or another character or whatever, feel free to let me know in the comments or on Reddit, and I will answer you if I know. But either way, that is the end of this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I actually did want to go through significantly more characters, but to be honest, I'm not exactly sure what characters are significantly harder to understand. I just went through a couple of characters that I thought were more used and people might be interested in knowing how exactly they work and how the exceptions and everything works for those set characters because they're popular. But if you guys have any characters that you find difficult to comprehend or you don't quite understand how they function or how they interact with other characters' skills and whatnot, feel free to let me know on Reddit or in the comments. As you guys have seen in the last few videos, I've been doing a lot of PvP and just in general like gameplay of the game as opposed to just guides. So I would say to probably get used to that because eventually there's not really going to be that many things to write guides about. But if you guys have anything else that you would like to know, not just skill related, but if you guys have any guides that you want to see and are not, you know, extraordinarily difficult for me to do, like for example, I can do a world boss video, but the thing is that since I'm on global as well, there's only so much that I can show you with what I have available to me, as opposed to someone like CD that is on Asia and is significantly farther ahead in the game. That's why I usually would just tell you to just go watch CD for something like that. Or for example, Evil Castle. I have to do Evil Castle in my own way using the characters that I own. But I'm not sure how useful that information might be for someone else. But if you guys are interested in seeing that, feel free to let me know. I'm always interested in posting more videos. But either way, that is the end of this video. If you guys enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the like button. If you guys are interested in seeing more content of the game, guides or otherwise, feel free to hit the subscribe button. I'm out, guys. Have a nice day.